This is Joy Paris, and you're listening to the Empathy Global podcast. Here we will come together and listen to the stories and struggles of people around the world. No blame, no political bent. We share our stories to erase the lines that are separating our increasingly fractured world, because in the end, if nothing else, we are all profoundly human. And finding the beauty in that, and being willing to feel someone else's pain, someone else's story with them, that is empathy.
Hi everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Today we have three teen moms here. We've got Trai, Chrissy, and we've got Candace from Making Me Too. Her website is makingme2.com, and you can find her on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at @makingmetoo, MAKINGMETOO. So thank you guys for joining us today. Candace, do you want to start by telling us your story?
Okay, I'm Candace. I'm 29 now. I had my first child. Well, I found out I was pregnant at 18. I had her at 19. She's 9 now. I also have a 6 and 2-year-old. I found out the day after I got kicked out of my parents' house for fighting with my mom. And I was sleeping on my brother's couch in a studio apartment. The room had been hotboxed, so it was covered in smoke, and I had my boyfriend at the time stop at CVS. We got a pregnancy test. I peed my childhood away, and we looked at it, saw 2 lines, and didn't know what that meant. So we left the box in the car. He ran down to the car and brought the box up, and then we saw that it was yes. He was only 17. He's younger than me, and he was still in high school. I was in my first semester of college. He was a junior in high school at the time. So he had to be home by his curfew. So right after we found out, I was kind of left in an empty, smoke-filled apartment, covering my face with a pillow because I now knew that there was a baby inside of me, and I was inhaling pot. And then he left. And that's how I spent my first night, knowing I was going to be a teen mom.
Wow. It's quite a story. All right, Chrissy, why don't you go next and tell us about yours?
Okay, hi, I'm Chrissy. I conceived at 12 years old, and at 13 she was born. The day I found out was actually, I think, 2 days before I was taken away from my mom and put into foster care. So we were staying in a hotel, or a motel, I guess you would call it, and we went down to the health department. I actually can't remember exactly why we went, but I had been into a little bit of trouble with the courts, and it was a pretty hectic time right then. My brother and I weren't going to school. He had just been arrested for armed robbery. He was 11, and we were at the health department when I found out. I have to proudly say that was the first and only pregnancy test I've had to take. I learned very well when that was positive where babies came from. We went next door to a little sub shop, and my mom cried for like the next 2 days until the state knocked on our hotel room door and told us that we had to get out and go with them. And of course my mom was extra devastated at that point. My daughter is 20 years old now, and I am 33.
Wow. All right, Trai, your turn.
I'm Trai. I conceived my daughter at 16 years old, had her 3 months after my 17th birthday. This was a very emotional thing for me. I was that girl that I left home at 14 and just wanted to be with the cool crowd and do what everybody else was doing, and, you know, introduced to sex, and, you know, I fell in love with my kid's father at 15, which I thought, you know, was love then, and, you know, today I know different.
Like the Taylor Swift song.
Brittany was actually at my high school graduation. I have pictures of her, and me in my cap and gown with her, holding her. like I said, I fell in love with the bad boy, and it was just one of the crazy relationship, on and off, broke up, fighting, love each other, chasing, all this craziness. And I think at that time in my life, I was looking for someone to love, and I just loved maybe the wrong person. I would not take back in a million years having my babies at 17, and then I had my son at 19. They are 22 and 24 now. And I would say that the hardest thing for me, and why I'm so emotional, because I love them so much. And I would want them, like what I have now in my life, I wish I had this for them growing up. They turned out fine. They're great kids. They work hard. My daughter's completely independent, like on her own, lives in Chicago, fearless. She's amazing. It was hard. It was hard. And a lot of it, my parents had to step in and take on some responsibility. I'm 17 years old, who can take care of themselves at 17, I was still in high school. I remember when I found out, actually, I was going out one night with some friends, and I'm in the shower, and I'm getting ready, and all of a sudden I threw up. And I'm like, where did that come from? I've never just gotten sick like that. So I was like, oh, that was really weird. So I end up going out that night, partying with my friends. 2 days later, it's like I keep getting sick, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'm pregnant. So went over to my girlfriend's house. We got the pregnancy kit from the drugstore. I take it, comes out positive. We all like started crying, like, it's 16 years old, Can you just imagine the fear that comes with, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a baby. And when I did find out, me and their dad wasn't together. We weren't together anymore. He had kind of moved on and was dating somebody else. So I had that pain. I ended up having my mom come to get me from her house. And I remember getting in the car, and I told my mom, and I said, Mom, please don't tell Dad. Like, he's going to be so disappointed in me. And she was like, we're going to get through this. And they were my support. Now, my dad was very upset. His biggest fear for me was that I was going to quit school. And I didn't. I proved him wrong. I graduated. I'm like, I made it this far in high school. I'm not going to give it up now. So my dad, he was very upset, and I don't think he knew how to deal with it either, or how to react to it. He's I'm sure looking at his daughter and knowing like the struggle that's up ahead, and he didn't want that for me. So anyway, it was a battle, and we fought. I'm in that teenage emotional roller coaster mess. Everything, your body chemistry, everything is a wreck.
That's pregnancy hormones.
Right. So we would fight, and I ended up I took the little kit at home, but I ended up going to the Planned Parenthood, and I don't remember the lady's name, but she was God sent. Like, she was my support, and she helped me get through that terrible time. When I went to her and found out I was pregnant, I had one of my friends take me there, and then we drove over to the kid's father's house, my daughter's dad, to tell him. And his mom was there, and he was there, and I go to the front door, And he comes to the front door and kind of peeks his head through, like, what are you doing here? And I told him, and his immediate response was, it's not mine. So I just turned around. I got 10 steps down the driveway, and I lost it. I'm bawling my eyes out in his driveway. Luckily, I had a friend there, supportive. So I started that as a single mom, teenage mom. I went through my entire pregnancy by myself. Once Brittany was born, her dad came around. And it was just like little by little, like he would leave stuffed animals at my doorstep. He was afraid of my parents because, he was like, they're going to kill me. And then, so little by little, he came around and we got back together. And then it was like, we're going to make this work. My biggest goal was keeping the family together. My parents are still together this day. They've been married 42 years. So family is very important to me and keeping it together. So we tried. He had a drug problem. So 2 years after having Brittany, here comes Billy, my baby. So I had Billy at 19, almost 20. Again, trying to keep the family together, on and off, just we're together, we're not together, not together. And that went on until my son's second birthday. And we had actually gotten married, me and the kid's dad. We got married, and he was the love of my life. I loved him with no doubt in my mind. But he had his own problems, and I didn't want that for my kids. So I remember my son's second birthday, their dad didn't show up. He was out doing cocaine or crack cocaine. And then he comes back, and we get in a fight, and he puts the kids in the car. I sat on the back of the car. He knocked the wind out of me. And I was on the ground, and I heard the kids crying in the seat. And I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. So they were 2 and 4. I packed up whatever I could fit in my car and drove to Florida and started a whole new life. And they have not seen him since.
Wow.
So, like I said, I did it. I worked hard. I had so much support from my family. I would not have been able to do it without him. And today, they're great. They're great kids. They're, like I said, very independent. And like I hold this on me because I feel bad. Like I wanted them to have more, but their response to me is, we don't know any different. Like, you're a mom, and you've been there. You've loved us. You've done everything. You've worked hard to make us who we are today. And so you can, no matter what the struggle is, you can make it through. Just keep your head up and keep pushing on, and everything will work out. So
that's incredible. Why don't we just keep with you, and then we'll go back the other direction. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about where you are now in your life?
Well, I got remarried.
I see your beautiful ring.
To the most wonderful man. Who, to him, those kids are his kids. And they were, I think, 8 Billy was 6 or 7 when Thomas came into the picture. And so Brittany was 8, 9. So, he's been there, and he will do anything for them, like good or bad. Like he's been through the great and the good times, the bad times, the ugly teenage years. And I always look at him and I say, why did you come into this? Like this, and you know what it is? He made a choice. It wasn't just something that happened. He made the choice that I'm going to come into this family, and I'm going to be there for them. And him and my daughter have the best relationship. Him and my son, you know, my son just started working for the company that he works for, and he's just been great. I couldn't ask for a better guy in our lives. And
Yes.
yeah, Chrissy knows him.
He's
He treats
wonderful.
me like gold. Total night and day. But you know, it's a choice, and I made that choice that I would never. I wanted a good guy for me, but I needed a great guy for my kids. And because that's what we needed to be stronger and to grow, and you know, and we needed his support. And you know, to my daughter, he is her knight in shining armor. So
I'm so glad to hear that. That sounds all amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Chrissy, why don't you tell us about your life now?
Okay. Am I going with current or a little more background?
It's up to you.
Okay.
Maybe you can start with where you are now and like how you got there.
Okay. Right now, I just sent my daughter out west. She wants to hike for 3 months and maybe stay. So I have a little bit of a empty nest feeling. It was a story for another day how that turned out once she left the state of Florida. It was pretty hectic. It was just a week ago Wednesday, I think. Yeah, a week ago Wednesday she left. So I'm still transitioning myself. But exactly what I wished and prayed for on the twin bed in the maternity home that they placed me in was that she would just be, just every day. I was just praying that she would be smart and strong and sweet. Just over and over. That's just what I wanted. And I had a lot of free time, so I was able to think really hard about what might have gone wrong in our life up to the point that I was 12 years old, 4 months pregnant, sitting in a group home 100 miles from home. Like, what went wrong in my life and how can I make it different? And I was just a kid, but I thought about it the best that I could. And there's definitely things I could have done differently to have made her life better, and I feel a little guilt about that. But she did turn out smart and strong, and the sweet shows sometimes. She's just so incredible, such a joy, and she's super independent. I remember when she was 11 years old, I think she was just wise enough to see my struggle, I guess. I remember she was always careful with money and saving money, and still in the grocery store she would try to buy her own cereal in the checkout line. And I was like, honey, this is food for you. It's I've got it. It's no problem. And she's still very much like that. She's very independent and really wants to make her own way and isn't scared of anything. She's over, I think she's in Colorado right now. She drove there in a 12-year-old Jeep, I think.
Wow.
Long story short, she flipped it 9 hours into her drive and still kept driving. Her first car accident, flipped it on the highway. I'll keep it simple. But so she's a super, super tough girl. And actually, I think yesterday I had my own car incident, and I haven't told her about it yet, but she was texting me that everything was going great there, and they're having a barbecue tomorrow, and she's so excited, and they're shopping for it, and she's like, when are you coming up to visit? And it was so sweet and so touching, because there were times when she wasn't as much pulling me towards her. And I was able to just briefly touch on an obstacle I had this week and just say, something came up that kind of set me back. I'm not certain how soon I'm going to come. And she's like, oh, what's wrong? You can call and vent to me anytime. I'm not working at this time, so I've got all the time in the world. And it was just so sweet. The funny thing was, the prior day when the big event happened, I wanted to call her because I was having a really bad moment about something kind of unrelated. And it brings me back to that she kind of became the alpha in the home, for better or for worse. But I wanted to call her to help me make a decision. I was having like one of the hardest days ever, and I felt like I couldn't even walk. And I wanted to just call her and say, who should I call to go eat with? Because I just couldn't, I was just paralyzed. So she's just such a strong, smart decision maker. Such a blessing. Such a blessing. I sell real estate now. I own my own home. I purchased it. The anniversary was just 2 weeks ago, my 6-year anniversary of home ownership, which is amazing, because I went to 11 different elementary schools And I didn't really realize that home ownership was an option until I ran into the real estate field where I started working 11 years ago. So life is pretty good, but it is definitely, some ups and downs because I've done it all by myself from the start. I've had so much on my shoulders. Granted, there were adults that stepped in, thank you God. The first one I remember, I was 12 years old. It'd been 2 months since I found out I was pregnant. I remember I had a loose tooth. I was in like the third foster home since I got taken away from my mom, and it was a maternity home in Jacksonville. Terrified. I was the minority there, which wouldn't be a problem, but a lot of the girls were super troubled, and I think that it was hard for them to understand me and me to understand them, so it wasn't extra comfortable for me. And I feel like subconsciously I was just dying for a mommy figure. Amazingly enough, a 19-year-old girl, I'll just call her T because I don't know if she wants me to give her information, but she showed up there because she didn't have enough money for lodging, so she ended up staying there, and I just latched onto her like you've never seen. She was a strong woman already, and I just like latched on. She was the mommy I needed, and however healthy or unhealthy it was, it helped me to get through because I was terrified. And I think it was around Christmas that she moved out, just after my 13th birthday, and I cried for 2 days straight. I thought I was gonna die. My mom has an addiction and wasn't able to visit. Even when she said she was coming, she would either not show up or show up too late to be allowed to see me. I gotta give her a lot of credit because she's always been sweet and loving towards me, never judged me for it, never got mad at me for putting myself in a situation to conceive unmarried. She was always just, I love you, I just want the best for you, but she wasn't able to be there for me, so I latched onto someone else. And when she left, I was really, really lucky because another girl came in, and I'll call her R, but her parents had kicked her out of the home because she got pregnant, and she had a family that in my eyes would have been perfect and everything that I have ever wanted, but it wasn't perfect. They couldn't accept the choice that she had made that got her where she was, so she was in this maternity home with a bunch of foster kids and wards of the state, and God sent her to me. It was amazing. I actually never thanked her mom for being tough on her, but it saved my life. And she was probably one of the most strong women I've known. Some people might have a problem with it, but that's exactly what I needed at that time, and she saved my life. I remember I didn't have much faith or anything like that at that time in God, and I'm still working on growing that, but she would sing me to sleep at night. We would paint each other's toenails because our bellies were getting pretty big and it was tough to do. She really, really made the time there more doable and helped me through a lot. And she and I are still friends today. I'm actually helping her purchase her first home. So we're just grateful to have each other. She saved me. I mean, she was amazing. And I've had other adults, official adults, along the way that I can't say enough. If you see someone, just listen for a second. Give them some eye contact or encouragement, whether it's a teen mom or just a kid at your son's school. Just those little tiny pieces of listening and support made the world of a difference to me. I could probably list 25 people that I feel contributed to my success. They probably don't even remember what they did for me, but it made a world of a difference. And I'm so grateful, and I try to kind of be that myself when I get the opportunity for younger people.
All right, Candace.
Okay. Well, let's see now. Like I said, I'm 29. My husband and I, it's my first daughter's dad, all my kids' dad. we were met in high school, and then we had Sienna when he was in high school, and I was in college, like I said, and we stayed together. It was that crazy puppy love in the beginning, like was already mentioned, kind of fighting. I believe I ran over his foot once. You know, that kind of turmoil, teenage relationship. Yeah, that drama, except, you know, you add kids in there. And so it makes it even more complicated. But yes, we, without a doubt, loved each other. We didn't get married. We were told to get married right away because he comes from a very conservative Christian home. I come from a very Southern type of do the right thing home. Mm-hmm. So, you know, my mom became a mom at 17 for my brother, and she had me the day after her 20th birthday. So her response was, you know, the immediate when I told her, just we'll get through this, which I thank God for, because she remembers that her mom kind of didn't have a good reaction. Her experience was really bad. So she made sure when she responded to me that it was in love. I mean, I later found out that she went to a parking lot and sobbed and cried, but not in front of me. So that was really great. But overall, you know, obviously now being a mom, I understand his family and my family's reaction because that's devastating, not what you want for your child. But so we were told to get married kind of right away, like, when are you going to get married? You know, when are you going to make an honest woman out of yourself type of thing. And we really didn't want to be forced into a marriage. My mom married my biological father, and you know, they got divorced just a little bit after that. So I didn't want to be, I mean, I know they say, you know, you should love somebody enough if you're going to sleep with them, but we weren't sure that's what we loved each other enough for forever. So we didn't want to be forced into marriage. We wanted to decide that we, just like everybody else got to do, that we were getting married because we wanted to and we loved each other. So we waited. And we ended up getting married when Sienna, that's my oldest daughter, was about 18 months. So we did wait on our own terms. I got to have a proposal. I got to have, you know, the engagement period to plan a wedding that, you know, that we worked very hard in several jobs and took out loans to pay for. But that was something that we were adamant about, that just because, like you had said before, that it happened to us, we wanted to choose how it unfolded. So I didn't want to, my husband is just amazing, and he didn't want me to feel like I missed out on anything because of this. I mean, there's certain things you miss out on. You know, we missed that whole crazy college years. We had our daughter whenever he became a senior, whenever he did his graduation. There's stuff we missed out on, but the options that we could choose, we wanted to have a say in how they unfolded so that we wouldn't end up resenting each other several years down the road. So we consciously made that choice to not get married right away so that we could have a say in how that happened. So we did. And then when we got married, we had our second child when I was 21, I think. They're 3 years apart. And then we have our 2-year-old now. So we've been together 12-ish years, married, oh my gosh, I hope I don't get this wrong, since 2009. Since 2009. And for us, the journey has really just been writing the end of our story how we want it to be, even though we didn't, I mean, we loved each other, but we were way too naive to know what we were doing, what the actual depth of what we were doing meant. I think in my own mind, I wanted someone to love deeply. I wanted someone that had no choice but to unconditionally love me. I think that played a part into what got us to where we were, you know, teenage pregnancy. And he wanted to be, our situation was I wanted to be rescued and he wanted to rescue. So that's what led us to, you know, being teenage parents. And unfortunately that scenario is great, like in movies or in the beginning when you like have all this drama and adrenaline. But, you know, 12 years later, it's hard work and dedication and self-sacrifice and humility and everything to actually have that be, you know, longevity. So we're just determined now. We own our own business. We're on our second home ownership. Our our daughter and our son and our youngest daughter are amazing. My oldest daughter is 9. She is very smart. One of those things where she goes to they go to private school, a Christian school, and there's with good intentions, just expectations that people have in certain scenarios. And so she's very proud that her parents had her in high school. She has, in first grade and kindergarten and all those things, she was very proud that all her and her friends had a competition and her parents were the youngest. I definitely have been called her sister. My mom got referenced as the mom at open house. That's always been the case. Now I have adult braces, so it's even worse, They definitely think I attend the school. So, she's just asked questions, especially with our faith background. She's heard what's wrong, what's right. Does everybody get to have their daughter as their flower girl at their wedding? Just like these talks that you don't think you're going to have, when she kind of asked us about, like, how come I'm in your wedding pictures and all these types of things. And, at 9, we've had to explain to her, based on our religion and based on just society, what they tell you, what we perceive as what we did wrong, what we perceive as what we've done right, explain her making her own choices and finding that pathway, and God's plan for everyone's life looking different. And so she's kind of like an old wise soul because she's experienced our hardship without really knowing it. So she's just my greatest teacher. I have learned so much from her just in this. Literally, we've grown up together. I'm sure that you guys can tell that. Yes. So she teaches me way more than I ever teach her, ever. My other children are amazing, too. I love Titus and Adela. But there's just a special thing with your child who brings you into adulthood and motherhood, in our case. So that's kind of where we're at now.
That's so amazing. I'm like, so is there anything you would want to tell people who maybe don't know what to say to a teen mom, or any experiences you want to tell about people who responded or treated you ways that maybe made this hardship even harder on you? We talked about before we started that, a problem with shame, which definitely comes along with some situations like this. I know all of you have been through that point at some point. I heard it in a lot of your stories already. Is a lot of blame, and sometimes it's shifting that onto somebody else or saying, well, shame on them for putting shame on me, So we don't want to do that. But sometimes people do this stuff unwittingly, like they think that they're trying to help, but it's not. Or they just don't know how to respond. And maybe you can just give us a message for people out there who don't know how to respond. Maybe it's their daughter, or maybe it's like their student, or someone in their church, or someone in their neighborhood. People have their automatic responses based on, I know a lot of people who will see like a particular tattoo on someone and say, well, they must be da 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 da, and they're like, you make up all this story about the person you've never even talked to. And we know that there's stories that come along with that when you're a teen mom, well, they must have. So sometimes people don't know how to be kind, so maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So for strangers, it's very simple. Shut up. To the well-intended older lady at the store who looks up and then looks down at my finger and then looks back up at me with that disappointed look. Like, you don't know my story, number one. I told you I was maybe gonna cry.
Take your time. Take your time.
That's putting shame on me that I didn't ask for. I experienced a lot of that. I experienced a lot of
I put
get my
tissues in
tissues.
here ahead of time.
I would say time and time again I could count endlessly. Yes, I know what makes babies. Thank you. Just the comments that you think, yes, I'm old enough. Like, geez, are you even old enough to have kids? Well, obviously, I get what puberty is. Thank you. It's biologically possible for me to have children. I push them out. So I know you for people, they feel uncomfortable when they notice an age or they say they want to say something. Just shut up. Like, just for a second, be quiet and listen to someone. Or you don't have to make light of the situation. You don't have to make a joke. You don't have to have any sort of opinion on it. There's keep it to yourself, because just like you've had hardships, so has that person. And I think there's a stigma, especially coming from a religious background or just society wise. They put this stigma on the bad choices of a teenage mom being worse than everything else. That you're damned because you had sex before marriage. Like, that is the epitome of all the worst things. And what I tell about my experience is in my own story, my sin or my life experience, I couldn't hide. And the difference between the man and a female in this situation is my husband was still in high school, but when he walked onto the football field as a senior with a baby at home, no one knew it. I mean, gossip, hello, of course, but like, you couldn't look at him and see. I had no choice but I walked into every situation, my stomach walked into the room first. So I don't get to hide it. Mine's on my sleeve, yours is deep down that nobody knows. So just because you get to hide your hard experiences, and I either had mine in my stomach, or I carried her around at my husband's prom, or I now have her next to me, almost the same height as me, and braces, and and being still, ID'd for a drink. That doesn't make, just because you can see mine, any different than yours. So just don't comment on it. I'll share with you if I trust you, or if I'm wanting to, and your job is to listen, regardless of the stigma you put on my experience. So that would be for strangers. And for family, I'd say I get it. I get it. My husband and I went through hell and back with our families, with our friends. Our friends are at that age gone, non-existent, They obviously have different interests. Even now, none of my friends are my age. They are all, everyone that's in the same life stage, in the same life stage that we're at, is at least 10 to 15 years older than us. And we just know that. It always has been. All of our friends that were around us are gone. We literally don't talk to the same people anymore, which is understandable because it's friendship. But family-wise, I get how devastating it can be. I, now being older, completely understand the reactions from our parents, from our siblings. It's devastating, and it changes your world. However, as much as you think it changes your world, it changes the person going through it tenfold. So if you could find it in you to be supportive, your reaction in your own mind can be one thing, but to that person, congratulate them. Like, I can't stand every time someone says they're, a teenage mom or whatnot, there's like this, I'm sorry. Yes, it's devastating, but it's also a life. Right. It's also the best thing that's ever happened to me. Right. And the worst thing that's ever happened to me, if that makes sense. So one of the best things my mom did was she made me call my aunts and uncles and announce my pregnancy. In a good way, like, we're expecting, so that it wasn't just like a grapevine that turned out that was spread out among our family that this horrible thing happened to me. She also threw me a baby shower, like the best baby shower, a baby shower that was at a I mean, it sounds ritzier than it was, but like a country club at a golf course. Like, she wanted it to not be such like a bad thing. So that would be my encouragement to families, is celebrate it. I, with my third pregnancy, was 25, 26, and people saw my ring, and people saw that we were married and we were older, and I got so many congratulations. Little old ladies would rub my tummy, and everybody was smiling, and I actually had to go through a season of mourning, and I cried a lot, that I didn't get those experiences. The journey into motherhood wasn't, you know, I see friends now, and I see, you know, my sister-in-law and everyone going through their first pregnancies, and they're all, you know, in their 30s and whatever, and their journey is so different than mine was. And I have resentment that I'm working in my own self. I have resentment, and I have hurt, and I have this feeling that I missed out on all these experiences that every woman deserves. And I have to work on that in my own self. But if you could be a small glimmer of that in a teenage mom, it doesn't just affect her in that little time. It will affect her in subsequent pregnancies. It will affect her as she gets older, and everyone around her has these glorious pregnancies and these little belly pictures that she never took or anyone wanted to see. And it just gives her a little bit of that normalcy in her first pregnancy.
I think a good thing about what you said, I had a friend who had just started, he went through something really tough, and he was just kind of like a more of an emotional guy. And so it was like something he really needed to learn to kind of embrace that within himself, and like kind of explore some of the hurt and not feel like you needed to shut it down. And I remember him telling me this story where his roommate that he was living with, they were both like maybe 30, 35, something like that. And he was really upset about something, and his roommate sits down, and he was like just feeling really uncomfortable because he like didn't know what to say, or was like trying to say these things, and he said, he was like trying to talk, and he said, "Don't talk." He said, "The best thing that you can do is to just sit with me." And he said, "Okay." And he sat with him, and he said, we just sat there in silence for a while. And I just have thought about that a lot ever since then, that people don't realize how much that means. Like you said, sometimes just don't say anything. Sometimes it's just doing something kind. Like maybe you see a teen mom and she's eating at the restaurant you are, and you just pay her bill. Maybe you don't need to say something. Maybe you don't need to try to make a joke, or, you know, maybe you just like
a smile goes a long
validate
way.
them.
Yeah.
You know, because
Smile, a prayer.
Yeah, something.
Because it's already hard enough. You know, you're already carrying a burden that's hard enough. And you don't need to make it worse or heavier, or, you know. And I just think sometimes, just in general, when we see that someone's hurting, we feel the responsibility to do something, and then we feel bad when we don't know what to do or say or whatever. And sometimes, just like you said, just a smile, or just validation. I mean, my husband is really good at that now, as like I said, I'm experiencing, because this is something that you think when you say like, are any former teen moms, I'm like, well, this is weird. Like, that's something I was, but I'm not really. It's kind of like this weird title you never get rid of, but you're also like, I'm not going to stay, like, I don't want to stay there. I'm not like always going to be this teenage mom. Yeah. Like, that's so cliche. But something he's great at now is that even though I've moved past it, it doesn't ever leave you. Like, as you can tell by our emotions right now, the shame that you talked about, the hurt, the life experiences, it literally molds you and doesn't leave you. And just the perfect thing can trigger a flood of everything you feel back. So for me right now in this season, going into my 30s, this is the quote unquote normal time that everyone starts building their families. There's a lot of people. I mean, I can't get on Facebook without another pregnancy announcement every day. So that re-triggers just that emptiness I felt that I didn't get that. Yeah. So it's really hard for me. And the best thing my husband does is just, he knows that obviously he wants to take it away, because our spouses usually want to take away our pain, or, or just family member, whoever you're close with wants to kind of take away that pain from you.
But I, have told him, like, I just need to be able to feel this. Like, and his biggest thing that helps me through this is to validate. Because I don't want to put that on someone else, like that, if my sister-in-law, I have niece and nephew both on side, and whenever they first were expecting, I was so happy for them. But also then there's always that lingering sadness for myself behind it. And I don't want to put that onto her. I don't want to do to her what someone did to me, like bring down her excitement. No way. I'm not going to go to her and be like, I'm really sad for myself. No, So for her, it was absolutely happiness and love and abundance for her. Like, that's just, I want to bring joy and give her the best experience possible through this. But in addressing my own hurt with my husband, that needs to be felt. So he validates that by just saying, like, of course you feel that way. Like, I get it. And just him saying, like, that I don't have to feel bad, because there's a lot of guilt with having any kind of thing about myself and other people's happiness. So it relieves the shame and the guilt for even feeling those things, for someone else to just say, of course. Like, of course you do. So, yeah.
All right, Chrissy.
Sorry.
I feel like you covered so much.
I know.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
we all
good.
feel the exact
That's
same
good.
way.
You really covered a lot of what I feel, and what keeps kind of coming to mind to me is really what just keeps sticking in my head is that I want to kind of almost give credit to the people who were able to hold that space, and the people who, if you're close enough to the person, help them see that there's always a way and that it'll be okay. There were times when strangers judged me. I had an aunt who temporarily took custody of me in South Carolina after the baby was born. So I spent 4 weeks in a foster home after my daughter was born. I was 13 years old. I had lost my last molar, by the way, or my last baby tooth while I was pregnant. So I'm 100 pounds and, trying to take care of this baby. She was gigantic. And the foster mom is, trying to show me how to do things, but being really forceful about it. And I was able to see the contrast of, this lady who, although she knew that I had attended bi-weekly, twice weekly parenting classes and read every book and magazine, she didn't believe that. She didn't have faith in that. And she wanted to undermine that and still think that her way was the best. So kind of try to have a little faith in the moms, because not only will that help them feel good, but it also helps them to feel responsibility as a parent. I think a lot of people do it to teen moms where they undermine their parenting skills, and unfortunately, a big thing that's showing up for me, although I've never really seen dads in person, literally, I have not seen a dad in action in my life. I feel like on TV and a little bit of seeing my friends is that we do that to dads too a little bit. No, I'll just do it. No, I'll just do it. And that affects the dad and baby bond, which increases the odds that if there's a split, that daddy's not going to be as involved. And that just brings such havoc to our world. So please, 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 with new moms or with dads, try to give them the benefit of the doubt. The baby's not going to break. It'll be fine. I think that's really important. And then a month, like I said, I spent a month in that home. There was a girl there that was a stranger. She would make fun of my daughter for breastfeeding, making fun of a newborn baby. She had a song she would sing, cry baby, suck on your mama's. And it was so uncomfortable for me, but she was in a yucky place. I mean, she was in foster care, and she was, gosh knows what she had seen. So when I got to leave there and stay with my aunt for about 6 months, it was just such a breath of fresh air. My family comes from a Christian family. My grandma had 10 children, and my mom was a teen mom. I go up to my aunt, who's the oldest of 10, and then I think number 8 in line of the family came down too, because my aunt that was the oldest was disabled and had limited funds and limited energy, but she was just they were both so supportive and so loving, and they let me carry the baby, do everything with the baby. But at 3 a.m, when I had school to get up for at 6 a.m., they would get up with me and just say, just go back to sleep, just go back to sleep. And that support is just so huge and so wonderful. And I just kind of want to touch on that, because those things you do that might not feel that big are huge. And they do make a difference if you're close to them and you're in a position to make that kind of contribution. was really, really big to me. There were, strangers up there at the middle school that knew I was going home on my lunch breaks to nurse the baby. And I found out that how old I was when I conceived her, and they would scream across the school, literally 100 feet from me, screaming, "Why did you spread your legs?" Mean, nasty stuff for no reason. But I guess we all just have to understand that they were in their own nasty place. They were just teenagers trying to make a name for themselves, probably, or feel good in whatever way they could.
And it's hard to understand that. I mean, middle schoolers are basically still babies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And,
Except we have no choice to not be.
Yeah.
Right. For other middle schoolers to understand that,
Yeah, it was tough, but I am grateful for the adults. After 6 months, I had to come back down to Florida, and I encountered a lot of administrative staff at school. There was a teen parent program I was able to get into. I'll brag that I got skipped from 8th to 9th grade and ended up graduating with honor roll while maintaining 2 jobs in my junior and senior year. But the administrators that gave me support, and my sister, the second she turned 18, she adopted my daughter and I. So she took us in, and she took a lot of an adult role in the house, except that I had been mommying this baby for so long. So she found a balance and found the patience, and really invested a lot of time in helping us have the best life and setting a good example of how to work hard. My daughter and I both, I think, learned that very well. I'm really super grateful for the adults that stood up and supported, even tiny stuff. In high school, I was in foster care and I was super awkward. I had glasses, and of course it's, hard to fit in, and I'm already awkward around everyone because no one gets me. I mean, my whole life I don't feel like I've ever been on the right level with anyone. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like we're just such different places, no matter what age group I go to or how old their children are. Mm-hmm. But at this school, the kids never pushed me away or made me feel like that. They were just in their own world, and that was fine. And the administrators, one made it a point to get me contact lenses. Another one let me shop in her closet for prom and babysat Kristen so I could go to prom.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It was really, really cool. I was in National Honor Society, and to go to the event, I'm sure they didn't say children weren't allowed, but for whatever reason, I didn't feel like it was appropriate to bring my daughter. I think that I was in 11th grade, and I feel like she was 4 years old, maybe about to be 5, and I had another administrator, offer to babysit, and it was actually the same administrator that helped me with the prom. I was really close with this one lady at the school, and so she babysat while my sister took me to the National Honor Society Awards ceremony, and I still remember she was a vegetarian, but she gave my daughter her first Happy Meal that day. It was so funny and ironic because I was very, trying to give her healthy stuff, the best that I could, and everything like that. But really the tiniest thing, as a person to another person that you can do, whether it's listening or reaching out or encouraging. I mean, there's always a way. I say that all the time. It's kind of like one of my little mottos, and can't pinpoint who taught me that, but it was probably a combination of all of them. And I just don't stinking give up. Mm-hmm. I don't. It carries into everything for me. I did graduate with my associate's degree. I'm partway through my bachelor's degree, and I really just delved into adulthood and kind of neglected school. I got my real estate license, and that's kind of the furthering of education I've done. However, lost my train of thought. School. However, all along the way, I just always felt like there was always a way, and that really brought me far, brought me through so much, and I apply it even at work. Someone calls me and they're looking for a rental, and I'm like, well, why don't you buy? And they've got like 9 obstacles in the way of them buying. And I'm like, okay, well, let's find you a rental, and I'll be happy to work with you through this. I've got this like eternal positivity that some people probably find aggravating, but I'm like, there's a way. If this is something that you want, would you like to have this? And then just find a way. There's just always a way. And I always taught my daughter that too. Like, if you ever get kidnapped and you're in the back of a trunk, there's always a way. Just never stinking give up. I've literally given that example. Like, just... Right. I don't know. There's always a way. So it's really awesome when people that don't know you or people that don't know you very well can come to you with positivity or a little bit of support or a listening ear. And I'm grateful as heck for all of that I got. It brought me far.
Wow, that's incredible. I wonder, I'm hoping we get some people to listen to this, but maybe you ladies can send it to some of the people who helped you. Maybe they don't even have any idea, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Do you have anything to add, Trey? I know you said they kind of covered it, but
the girls pretty
you're welcome
ladies,
to add any little.
we all, it seems like, even though our stories are a lot different, the feelings and the circumstances, situations, the responses it's been the same. I find myself guilty sometimes if I see a single parent, and I think it's because of my own shame, because, and it's not that I look at them and I shame them. I look at them and my heart breaks. So I don't know what to say to them, and I don't want to put what I went through and my feelings, on somebody else. But I will say, don't shame them. Don't shame. They're carrying enough of it on their own.
I'll feel it forever.
Yes. Be that person. Be that light in their dark world. Reach out to them. Love them. Just love on them. That's all they need. Love on them. Support them. Offer to help in any way that you can. You can't take it back. You can't undo it. So look at this situation for what it is and help move forward. Those people that have stepped in to our lives and gave that support, they can see now how great the kids are and see the good that came out of it. It's not bad. It's a bad circumstance to be in at a young age, and but it's a situation, and it worked out, and thankfully for those people that stepped in, our kids have a nice life, and they've learned from it too. I think I've scared my kids so much from not being pregnant. I'm like, okay, once they got past the 17 and 20 years old, I'm like, okay, they made it past me.
Yes.
Win.
Yes, that was a great breathing point for me too. I was like, oh.
Yes, and and being a single mom, you take on that responsibility at such a young age, and to me, that's all I know is to be a mom.
Yes.
So I went through what Chrissy just went through with the daughter leaving the nest, and went through that, and yes, first Tampa, off to college, bachelor's degree, 3 years. She's amazing. 24 years old and made over $100,000 last year. She's so driven. She works out. I look at her and I go, how do you do this? And it was the support that we had from our family, our friends, and people that had stepped into our lives and were there for us, because it was hard. It was a very hard circumstance to be in, and I don't know how we would have done it without them. And they should be proud of that. So if any of you guys hear it, be proud.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Well, thank all of you for sharing your stories. It's very brave. I think sometimes we are carrying a lot of stuff and we want to share it. We need somebody to stand beside us and say, me too. But that's scary because a lot of people don't know how to respond. And sometimes it only makes it worse, like the sympathy of I have no idea what you're going through, honey. But, and then you're like, great. Now I feel more alone. I know you were trying, but, so to share your stories publicly like this is very brave. And I appreciate all of you for being here and spending this time with me. And I really hope this can make a difference for either other girls out there who are going through this now, or women who have gone through it, years back and maybe didn't have the support, that they can realize that they're not alone. And even you guys, I can tell you're kind of touched by hearing how similar your stories are,
You're not really usually in the room with, I don't ever get, it's hard to, you don't get me too a lot.
Right.
You don't get me too a lot in this. Like I said, like everyone, you literally are usually the only one in the room, no matter what age group. When we're with older friends, they have, their life experience is different, but our kids are the same age, and if, you know, that kind of thing. So you don't ever really get this whole thing where people get it. You really, like, you never get it. This is literally like a gift to have other women, even though, like you said, our stories are so different, but just to hear myself and other stories is like, you never get it. You literally just, it's just a very rare common experience.
The same emotion.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and the same, you know, the same love, the same fear.
Yeah.
But you know, I can just say, keep pushing on. You know, you're gonna make it. You just work hard. Don't give up. Like Chrissy said, there's always a way. You know, make it happen. Don't give up.
Well, thank all of you for tuning in today. We really appreciate it. If you could go to iTunes and subscribe and give us a rating, that would help us out a lot. Well, this was a really great first episode, and I thank you all for being here.